Now for this review, I decided to do something a little bit different. Instead of narrating off an entire script, I decided to keep this a little bit unscripted, with notes that I will just be genuinely talking to the mic just to make it a little bit more genuine in a way. I really feel like when I do real narration from a real script, it feels very robotic. And I promise you, this will not be filler, it's just that I really want to try this out. And if this works, this means I can do videos more often, get them out more often and everything. I can save time writing the script, I could just save time to just record, have notes, and then everything will be fine. And this will not end everything about my fancy editing, I will still edit it heavily. The most tedious part of my reviews is the editing. And I really hope you like it. I would really like some feedback on this concept, you know. It's not a review where I just take everything from the top of my head. There is still a lot of planning behind this, I still have to take notes, and I make sure that everything I say about the game is genuine and that makes sense. Which brings me to God of War 2, the sequel to God of War 1, which I reviewed a little while ago. You can click this thing that I put in the editing, yeah, go ahead. Now in my God of War review, I did not talk a lot about the story. I talked about the general plot, but I didn't really go into detail with any of it. To understand God of War 2 properly, you need to play God of War 1, and I'm about to spoil everything about God of War 1, so click to this point in the video to skip the spoilers. I just want to point out some things that happen in God of War 1 before we move on, and that is the most depressing thing of all. Now, in God of War 1, Kratos ends up killing his wife and child. And then I got the answer to why his skin is so pale. You get this answer in the cutscene. Kratos' white skin is the ashes of his dead wife and child.
From this night forward, the mark of your terrible deed will be visible to all. The ashes of your wife and child will remain fastened to your skin, never to be removed.
And with that curse, all would know him for the beast he had become. His skin white with the ash of his dead family. The ghost of Sparta had been born.
That is just so depressing. But let's talk a little bit more about God of War 1's story. Now in the end of God of War 1, Kratos was not freed from his torment after defeating Ares. He only took his place as a new God of War. And this is pretty much where God of War 2 begins as well. Now the game started off with Kratos going down to a town causing just all kinds of carnage. And I have to say that the opening level in God of War 2 is better than the opening level of God of War 1. Like, how do you even do that? Because the opening level in God of War 1 was something I consider fucking perfect. It taught you all the basics right out of that. No stupid long tutorials that kept you from just playing and having fun. It also had a great sense of accomplishment. Like, who did not feel like a badass when finishing that level? I bet you felt like a fucking badass. And it all just really gave you a very good impression of what to expect. Mythical creatures, amazing combat, and just gore. It was a gore fest, and I love it. God of War 2 somehow manages to make it even better, with more gore, more action, and better combat. Especially with this thing, the Sword of Olympus. It's just amazing. Now I ended up playing through this entire level only using the sword. I actually think you can only use the sword because, you know, now you're a god. And this is actually pretty cool because it makes you feel OP as shit. Now even though people often think that being OP is very bad, I think it's pretty good, but not if you're too OP, you know. The whole being overpowered thing was also very apparent in the first level of God of War 1. You truly felt overpowered as shit. But as the game progressed, the enemies got a lot stronger as well, but the progression was very well paced, so you never felt cheated, you felt like this was a very natural element. And more games need to do this very natural because a lot of games just tend to use cheap difficulty spikes out of nowhere. During Kratos' carnage, he takes out the battle with the Colossus of Rhodes. It was brought to life by the power that the King of the Gods drained from Kratos. Hence why Kratos went from being this to this. And yes, Kratos manages to kill it after getting the Sword of Olympus from Zeus after sacrificing all of his immortality. Ironically, Kratos gets crushed by the collapsing statue.
Do you need more proof than this?
Placing all of his godly power into the weapon had rendered Kratos mortal.
And he thus got weakened enough for Zeus to kill him with the Sword of Olympus.
It did not have to be this way, my son. This path is of your choosing. A choice from the gods is as useless as the gods themselves. Even now, as you draw your last breath, you continue to defy me? Everything you have ever known, Kratos, will now suffer because of your sacrilege.
He's now mortal again and he's dying again. And of course, Kratos ends up in hell again, but he is later saved by the Titan Gaia.
Can no longer simply watch. We will help you defeat Zeus.
Gaia tells Kratos about the great war between the Titans and the gods. Now when the Titans lost the war, they were humiliated and punished. Now, Zeus was raised by the Titans. More specifically, he was raised by Gaia, who also nurtured Zeus's desire to free his siblings from Kronos. And when he had freed his sibling from Kronos, he declared war on the Titans. She felt that as a very big backstab, hence why she also wants revenge on Zeus. Now while the war went on, Zeus created the Blade of Olympus, which he used to bend the Titans to Tartarus. While some Titans were spared but heavily punished. Kronos was cursed to wander the desert of Lost Soul with Pandora's temple chain on his back. Prometheus was made mortal after breaking his oath to Zeus by giving fire to the mortals, got chained to a rock, and had to endure his liver being continuously eaten by an eagle. And Atlas was eventually given the commission of keeping the balance between the earth and the underworld stable. And thus the plot is settled. Kratos needs to find the Sister of Fate in order to go back in time and stop Zeus from banishing the Titans to Tartarus. A pretty cool plot if you ask me, much better than the first one. I heard that a lot of people don't really like the stories in the sequels, but I also prefer the stories from the sequels. It just feels much greater and everything. Plus the plot of God of War 1 was actually pretty simple. I liked it though, but I do like the stories of God of War 2 the most. And like God of War 1, the story is presented in beautiful cutscenes like just this actually ran on the PS2. Even though I played the PS3 version, but that doesn't matter, the game looks fucking awesome. And just like God of War 1 as well, the bosses are fucking awesome, but they're even better. The Barbarian King is by far my favorite boss in the entire game. Once he's defeated, you get his hammer, which I never used. And that reminds me of one of the problems I have with both God of War games. They give you so many weapons that basically do the same thing. I just use the Blade of Chaos throughout the entire game. Again, like I did in the first one. You also get a spear at some point, which I also barely use, but at least that's somewhat helpful, at least more than the hammer. But you'll be just fine using the Blades of Chaos throughout the entire game. Also, the puzzles are back. The puzzles again, they're very simple, but you still have to think a lot to get through them. Well, of course, that depends on your mental capacity, but they're a lot of fun for the most part, and sometimes even very challenging, you know, finding all the things that you have to put on the things to get the thing to do the thing. Puzzles are awesome, and everything about this game is awesome, oh yeah. If you're a fan of Greek mythology or anything like that, you owe it to yourself to play this game. If you haven't played it already, of course, but still, if you've already played it, play it again, because it's good. Screw end cards, I can't be bothered.